The fact that you're all here guarantees that this is going to be a successful meeting. However, for it to be tremendously successful, we would encourage you to ask questions at any point. We want to share the information that we have about mosquitoes, about their behaviors, the bionomics and biology of mosquitoes, so that you leave here with a better understanding of how these animals interact with humans and actually where they are vulnerable to be controlled. So, having said that, I think there's a microphone that can be passed around if you have a question at any time. Don't hesitate to stop and ask. I'm going to take a minute now to show a video that was produced in 1945, prior to the creation of Hillsborough County Mosquito Control, probably prior to most of us joining the party here on Earth. But it's a reminder of where we've been, and mosquito control has a tremendous legacy, not only in Florida, but around the world. So the great thing about this video, it's one of the rare pieces of archive footage about trying to eradicate Aedes aegypti, and it was shot right here in Tampa, Florida, in 1945. So I'm going to go ahead and see if this will work.
By air, by land, and by sea, all routes lead to this southern city. Beautiful scenery and sunny skies attract many additional residents each year. Unfortunately, this climate is also ideal for one of man's worst enemies, the Aedes aegypti mosquito, carrier of dengue and yellow fever.
So what a great look at the history of the same exact threat that we're facing today 70 years ago. When I see that particular video, and I've watched it a few times, what I find striking is that nowhere in that footage was there any mention or any strategy to use insecticides to control this mosquito. And there's a reason for that, because this particular mosquito, or now there's actually two, we've had an imported relative of Aedes aegypti, and we're going to talk about that. It's a very difficult mosquito to spray away because it's highly urbanized, it's paradomestic, it likes to hang out with humans, and unfortunately, the public today thinks that the way to rid yourself of a mosquito or a mosquito problem or a mosquito issue or a mosquito threat is to spray. You're going to spray, spray, spray. That's probably not going to be very effective unless you actually have a zone of transmission with an infection rate that's exceeding some threshold where actually spray might actually help to break the cycle. But the key to reducing the threat of Aedes aegypti is no different today than it was in 1945. It's to eliminate the source of the mosquito, which for the most part is artificial containers. And you folks see those situations a lot more than we do. We're set up to spray big mosquito swamps and tidal flats, ponds and ditches. We handle that with no problem at all. But to go into someone's backyard and try to remove tires and buckets, you might as well just put a blindfold on us and send us out, with no guidance, because it's not something that we're that good at. So again, we're your biggest fans, we're your biggest supporters, and we hope you leave here today with a little more understanding of the mosquito itself and where you're likely to find it. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the mosquitoes that you'll also find while you're out doing your jobs. So with that, any questions about the video? Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that a lot of the containers that were emptying had active larvae in them. Once they empty that, is that larvae still capable of hatching, or is it not?
No, well, the actual, the larvae itself, once they dump it onto the ground, will die. But what you need to understand is that the mosquito, the adult mosquito, when she oviposits her eggs, she'll put them on the sides of the container above the water. So if that container is flipped back over again and in the future it fills up with water, there will be more eggs and you'll have more larvae. So dumping it over is a key to getting rid of the larvae that are in the container, but throwing that container away or punching holes in it or somehow altering it so that it's not hospitable to mosquito larvae is going to give you a long-term solution. It's a good question, thanks. Okay. So, I want to test your basic knowledge about mosquitoes, and kind of these are some true or false scenarios, and just kind of see where we're at. Okay, true or false? Only female mosquitoes bite humans and animals. True or false? Raise your hand if that's true. All right, raise your hand if that's false. Okay, that's true. Only the female mosquito will bite a human. And the reason that she bites you or somebody near you is that she needs to develop eggs, and that egg development requires a lot of protein. And she gets the protein from blood. True or false? Some mosquitoes don't bite humans. They prefer to bite other hosts, such as birds, frogs, and snakes. True or false? True? False? That's true. Some mosquitoes have no desire to interact with humans at all. They're happy to bite birds. We have one particular genus of mosquito in Florida that likes to feed on reptiles. That's just its behavior. That's just how that mosquito was born to act. True or false? Salt marsh mosquitoes, my favorite, may travel up to 1,000 miles from their larval breeding habitat. Is that true or false? True? Of course not. That's false. I added an extra 0. They can travel 100 miles, which is still a long way. And not only is it a long way, but we're not talking about one mosquito that shows up 100 miles away. They fly in a brood together, like a gang of mosquitoes, and they'll show up, not always 100 miles, but we'll have mosquito hatches, in Apollo Beach that'll, show up in Palm River in 2 days, by the millions. So that's true. That's false, sorry. Okay, all mosquitoes require water to breed. Some species can breed in puddles left after a rainstorm. That's true. That's true, that's easy, okay. Okay, abandoned swimming pools are excellent habitat for Zika mosquitoes. True or false? True? False? Okay, that's false. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad that we're all here talking about this. Swimming pools, that turn green, they produce mosquitoes, there's no doubt, and the treatments that are being made are beneficial, there's no doubt about that. But they're not a tremendously favorable habitat for Aedes aegypti. Aedes aegypti do not like deep water. They like shallow water. So, it's not impossible to find them in a swimming pool, but more than likely, if you have a swimming pool that's partially tarped, and the tarp has got water collecting on the top of it, that's where you'll find Aedes aegypti. And I actually have a video I'll show you later that really demonstrates a habitat with several different types of containers and 2 different types of mosquitoes that favor each of those habitats. True or false? Mosquitoes are the deadliest animal on Earth. Who says that's false? Who says it's true? It's the last question. It's your last chance to participate. True or false? That's true. okay? A lot of people don't realize it. I love this slide because down here, they've got sharks. Sharks are responsible for killing 10 people a year, but everybody thinks sharks are like so dangerous, but you're looking at 1 million people a year that are impacted fatally by mosquito-borne illness. Malaria being, of course, the big one. Not so much in North America, but mosquitoes, number one, not even close. And you know, there's no animal on the planet that's been studied greater than the mosquito has, and this is the reason why, because it's a devastating insect across the world. Okay, now let's talk about, this is no longer true or false. This is all true. So there are 2,700 species, probably more than that, you know, on the earth, and there are 176 different species in Florida, or in the United States. And a lot of people are surprised. A lot of people think there's only one kind of mosquito. It's the one that bites me. In Florida, over 80 species of mosquitoes in Florida. And trust me, Florida has their mosquito control science down. If you're going to be involved in mosquito control, Florida is the place to be because of the variety of mosquitoes, the impact to the quality of life for all the citizens of Florida, and certainly the public health issues as well. Hillsborough County, we have 47 different types of mosquitoes that we see routinely. There's this thing hanging up right here. I'm sure some of you are wondering. This is a mosquito trap. One type of trap, and you know, this cooler holds dry ice, and that mimics carbon dioxide. When people exhale carbon dioxide, mosquitoes are attracted to that. They know that there's a warm-blooded mammal that's got blood to give. So this trap will catch, it runs all night, it catches mosquitoes all night long, certain types of mosquitoes, not all types. And you know, it's not unusual to catch 15, 20 different types any night, depending on where you set that trap. Now, most of those 47 different species of mosquitoes are active in the evening and after dark. And during the daytime, they're seeking shelter. Mosquitoes are an arthropod, and they have an exoskeleton, so they don't have any bones inside their body. Their body is actually a shell, like a crab, and they will dry out. They dry out very easily in the heat and in the dryness. So they seek moist places to hide during the day, and at night when it cools down and the humidity, you know, is a little higher, they'll come out and begin their host seeking, where they're actually out looking for a host to feed on. So most of those 47 species are nighttime mosquitoes, which is what our program has been, you know, controlling for decades. But there are two of those species that are daytime active mosquitoes. They prefer urban habitats, and they really like people. And that's where we come up with paradomestic. They like to live around humans. And these are the two. Aedes aegypti, it's been around for well over 100 years in Florida. It was introduced in the shipping trade. It's a port mosquito. You usually find it in, you know, around ports, and not always in tropical ports, but they will establish themselves in tropical areas, but they were introduced off of ships. Aedes albopictus is a closely related cousin to Aedes aegypti. Aedes albopictus is commonly called the Asian tiger mosquito. So it wasn't seen in the U.S. until 1985. It was tracked to a shipment of used tires that came in to Houston, Texas. And the tires had the eggs laid inside of them. They were dry. Tires got thrown outside, it rained, the tires flooded, the eggs hatched, the mosquito was then introduced to North America, and it quickly spread from Texas all the way to Florida and even up north, and I've got some slides that show you the distribution. Aedes aegypti is referred to as a yellow fever mosquito. That's the legacy of that mosquito. These are some actual photos of Aedes aegypti. If you're out, especially around a tire pile, doing some work, and you see mosquitoes flying around your ankles, you can probably identify this mosquito just by understanding how it looks. Now, I'm going to assume the role of an Aedes aegypti mosquito, and I'm going to tell you why I'm different from all other mosquitoes, okay? So, First of all, I lay my eggs and develop my larvae in both natural and man-made containers. When we talk about natural containers, we're generally speaking of tree holes and bromeliads. Okay, those are the two natural containers that we commonly find Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus in. I should mention that my talk is mostly about Aedes aegypti, which they expect is the vector, and they're starting to see that as proving in Miami, because they've actually isolated Zika now in 4 collections of live mosquitoes, wild mosquitoes, and all 4 were Aedes aegypti. So that's not a big surprise. Aedes albopictus in the laboratory setting is an efficient vector of Zika, but not nearly as efficient as Aedes aegypti. Okay, I lay my eggs on non-soil, which is interesting because I don't like to lay my eggs on dirt. I don't like dirt at all. I like plastic, and I like rubber, and I like metal. And then there's no other mosquito like that prefers those artificial types of habitats. I lay my eggs just above the water line. So when that water rises, when it rains, the eggs get submerged, and the eggs can actually survive 10 years until there's a flood. I'm most active from sunrise all through the day until sunset. Okay, this is the real interesting behavior about this mosquito. I wake up with you and I go to bed with you. And that's not like any other mosquito we see. And it's very difficult for us to spray adult mosquitoes. You know, you've seen the trucks at night with the fog. Everybody's kind of grown up with that. We can't do that during the day, not without a very good reason. So we currently don't do that. We don't attempt to do that. Now, we will spray in your backyard, and we will spray a tire pile if we see it during the day, but we're not going to be driving up and down Nebraska Avenue right now spraying mosquitoes like we do at night. I don't think it would be well received. I love to move into your home. Okay, this mosquito will hang out by your door, and when you open the door, it's going to follow you right inside, and it's going to hang out in your house. It's going to feed on you. It's going to feed on your family, and it prefers to feed on humans. And there's a good reason for that. You know, this mosquito has been well studied, and they've given in a laboratory setting where they have a colony of these mosquitoes, they feed them different types of animal blood. And what they notice is that the egg production drops significantly with different types of blood, whether it's, birds, cattle, pigs, whatever. But when you give it human blood, that egg production is optimized. So this mosquito prefers human blood over any other type of blood, and that is why it's so proficient at spreading illness. And then another unique behavior is that typically if a mosquito lands on you and it's feeding on your blood, if you don't disturb it, it's going to go ahead and take a blood meal, and it's going to finish the blood meal, and it's going to fly off. This mosquito doesn't do that. It'll take a little sip of blood from one person, then fly to somebody else, take another little sip of blood, fly to somebody else, take another little sip. And that behavior is critical when you're looking at the transmission of a virus from a host to host, because it goes and it takes a little bit of blood. Every time it feeds on a person, it injects saliva into the skin, under the skin, and that's the mode of transfer, mode of action of the virus. I do not fly far from my water or container source. Unlike the salt marsh mosquitoes that fly 100 miles on occasion, Aedes aegypti might not fly 100 yards. That's about the length of their range from where they're born. So if you have them on you, chances are that there's something nearby that's got water in it that they're coming out of. Okay? Any questions about the behavior of Aedes aegypti? This is the global distribution of this mosquito. And as I indicated, it's a port mosquito, but in North America, you can see that it's predominant along the Gulf Coast from Florida to Texas. Florida, by far, is where this mosquito is well established throughout the entire state. Now, when Aedes albopictus was introduced in 1985, and it came to Florida, I think around 1989 or 88, but as Aedes albopictus spread through the state, it actually displaced Aedes aegypti for a while. It kind of took over the habitat, and a lot of folks thought that maybe it was going to be a good thing because it's going to outcompete Aedes aegypti for the habitat. But that didn't last forever, and now we're seeing that Aedes aegypti has made a big rebound in Florida, and it's certainly in Hillsborough County, it's found everywhere. This is a life cycle diagram. I've got a video a little later that really goes over this very well. But when a mosquito emerges as an adult, the first thing the female does is she breeds, she mates with a male. They only have to mate one time for life. And then she'll seek a blood meal to develop eggs. And she could go through that gonotropic cycle 8 times in her life. So she could feed, lay eggs, and continue to do that for a month or more. The eggs are laid in these containers that we've talked about. The containers flood, the eggs hatch, the first instar larvae emerge. Mosquito larvae go through 4 stages of growth called instars. Every instar, they shed their skin, grow a little bigger, and then for another day or two, they'll shed their skin and they'll keep growing. During this larval stage, they're feeding constantly. The larvae have filters on their mouth, brushes, and they just continue to filter organisms out of the water, and they feed on that. And that's important when in any kind of mosquito control, because the products that we like to use to control mosquitoes, the most beneficial products that are natural and have a great environmental profile, they're consumable, so the mosquito has to eat it. So it's important, you have timing issues. When the mosquito is feeding, you have a very good chance of controlling it in a very environmentally friendly way. But when they stop feeding, you've got to look to something else. The final aquatic stage of a mosquito is the pupa stage. That's where everything about that pupa is going to change, or the larvae. Everything changes into an adult. The only thing that remains the same is the central nervous system. Every other physical thing on that mosquito larvae is transformed in that pupal stage. It's a metamorphosis. A day or two in that stage, they don't feed at all. They don't like to be bothered. They don't like to move. And I've got some over here. You can look at them. And then that pupal case will split open. The adult will crawl out, stand on top of the water for a couple of hours, lets the body dry, and then they fly off. Males typically hatch first, and then females will hatch a little later. Any questions about the life cycle? Yes, sir.
What's the time frame between the first larval stage to the adult emerging?
Good. It's dependent on a couple of things. One is the nutritional availability of food for the larvae, and then also, believe it or not, the water temperature. The warmer the water, the faster larvae develop. But in general, you're looking at a week at the outside of 7 days, sometimes 5, sometimes maybe 8, but usually about a week. You've got about a week for this particular mosquito from the time it hatches from an egg until it's flying and biting people. And I've got some larvae here too that you can look at, and they've already grown since I collected them yesterday. Here we have some real photos of Aedes aegypti. This is a plastic container, and this ring that you see is not dirt. Those are mosquito eggs, a lot of eggs. So this was probably a container that was producing a lot of mosquitoes, and nobody had noticed it. And the more favorable the habitat is, the more adult mosquitoes are going to oviposit their eggs there. And so this looks like it's got a lot of eggs. These are the eggs. Obviously, they're very small. You can see them with the naked eye, but they're very small. They lay them individually. Some mosquitoes will lay their eggs in a raft, 200 eggs, at one time. This mosquito lays them one at a time. Each egg is glued to the side of this container, and it's not going to move. If that container blows over, rolls down the road, the eggs are they're not going to move. They're cemented to the side, and then if it flips over and fills up with water, they're going to hatch. Here's some larvae, Aedes aegypti. I've got some real live ones over here. I encourage everybody to look at them. This is a tray full of larvae, and this is a pupa. This is a really interesting stage. Now, this is the habitat that you folks probably see a lot more than we do, but this is what's killing us with this mosquito. Used tires, 6-star hotel for Aedes aegypti. If there's a tire anywhere in Hillsborough County, if it's been laying under a tree for a month, and if it's got water in it, you can almost bet it's either going to have eggs or larvae in it. They do like the shaded areas more than out in the direct sun, but that's the number one source, used tires. Any type of artificial container that can hold rainwater is hospitable to Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. There's a pool here. I know everybody's saying, well, there's a pool. And it's not impossible to find them in a pool, but typically you're going to find Culex quincunfasciatus in a pool. Another hidden source, these little trays that people have under their flower pots. People like to water their flowers and keep that thing full of water for obvious reasons. Mosquitoes will lay their eggs right in there, and you can't even see the larvae that are in the water. A lot of times we have people that call, we go to their house, we do an inspection, we're getting Aedes aegypti landing on us. First thing we look at, we see flower pots on the patio that are full of water. It's important too, if you're going to dump these containers out, if a bird bath would be another good example. If somebody has breeding going on in the bird bath and you encourage them to dump it out, you also want to have them get a brush and scrub the sides, because there's going to be eggs that are already attached to the container as well. So you want to encourage them, flush it out, and also scrub the eggs out and then rinse it out again. Rain gutters, okay? You got to look up sometimes when you're out looking for this mosquito, because they'll lay their eggs in rain gutters that are clogged with leaves. And that leaf litter creates a very good nutritional habitat for those larvae to develop quickly. This isn't an exclusive list of habitats. There are thousands of different things that you can find this mosquito in. Now, here are the two mosquitoes side by side. Aedes aegypti on the left. You see that Lear-shaped pattern, very easy to identify. Aedes albopictus is easier to identify. It's got a single stripe right down the thorax. It's a scaled, white scaled stripe. You can tell that they're closely related in the same genus, and they look very similar. A lot of times when we set a trap, these scales get rubbed off, and it's not that easy to tell the difference. We have to look at other characteristics. But these are the two paradomestic mosquitoes we have in Hillsborough County. Here's just a slide that demonstrates the slight difference in distribution and range. Aedes aegypti, again, it really prefers the subtropical areas of the U.S., Florida, Texas, Louisiana. You'll find it, a little bit further north. Aedes albopictus, it's not nearly as favorable to warmer climates. I mean, you're still not going to find it in the plains of North Dakota, but I've seen it in Nantucket, in Massachusetts. I've seen a bird bath full of Aedes albopictus larvae in the summer. So it's got a little bit better ability to survive the cold winters, not the brutally cold winters, but certainly can handle the Florida winters like we all can. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, you talked about if the container flips over and the eggs were on the side, how long can those eggs lay dormant and still be viable?
A long time, 5, 6, 10 years. The eggs are, they're engineered to one day become an adult mosquito, and so they're going to survive. And another interesting survival behavior is that, let's just say you have 1,000 eggs in a container, and the container floods. Only about 800 of the eggs are going to hatch. 200 of them are going to stick around for the next flood. Okay, that way, if you were able to dump over the container and kill all 800, you haven't killed off that batch of eggs, because there's still 200 left, and the next time it floods, of those 200, maybe 175 hatch. So they have almost some sort of internal timer so that kind of guarantees survival through multiple floods. So, but any mosquito egg that's a floodwater mosquito can survive a decade or longer. Good question. Yes, sir.
How vulnerable are the eggs to chemicals?
Well, there's nothing that is registered and labeled to control mosquito eggs. So, you know, and probably for the reasons we just mentioned, if it's got to last for 10 years waiting for the egg to hatch, it's got to be pretty potent stuff. You can go out into some habitats and you can take some soil samples and you can determine the density of eggs. You can pre-treat areas like a salt marsh is a good example. You know, we just had a hurricane and we had tremendous flooding in some of these high salt marsh areas. Had we decided to try to pre-treat those areas, knowing that the eggs were going to hatch, we could have pre-treated the larvae, you know, put something down, knowing that it was going to flood. But there's nothing available that will control eggs other than source reduction, which is to eliminate the source completely. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in the beginning, when you first started with everything we're discussing, I noticed that the biggest influx of calls that we get are when we're out here regarding pools. Citizens will, you know, address a complaint in regards to swimming pools and whatnot. And so I was surprised that you were saying that with shallow water is more where Aedes aegypti seem to, you know, like more so than green, dark, mucky pools that we encounter most of the time.
That's correct.
And so, it just seems like that's the ongoing thing where there's not, I mean, there's emphasis, of course, to dump anything that would hold water, getting rid of tires, all of those things. But it seems like the biggest concern that I get from complaints that come in is regarding the pools and that they're green, and citizens seem to think that because of the pools and how dark they are and full, that that's where the Zika is coming from.
Right. And it goes well beyond that. People will call up and say, I've got a ditch and I don't want to get Zika. Or, you know, there's a pond. We get more calls about ponds. Ponds, for the most part, that are healthy, that have a lot of different types of predators, you know, fish, they're not going to produce mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are very good food for a lot of predators. And so they, you know, you typically find mosquitoes in temporary stagnant water that doesn't have a lot of other predators in it. So, you know, ponds and lakes, although the average person, you go out to the lake and you get bit by mosquitoes, okay, so they think, well, they're coming out of the lake. But that's really not the case. You know, the mosquitoes can travel quite a ways, and they may hang out by the lake because it's nice and cool and there's shelter there.
Okay, so question I have also, I've had some citizens, testing. Some citizens have also felt that if they leave the pools full and they have tadpoles that then hatch into frogs, that they're going to help rid and take care of this particular mosquito. And so it gets to be kind of where it's a debate where we're trying to protect the citizen, but they have certain belief that if it's overfull and has the tadpoles that grow into frogs, it will help to rid of, you know, this particular mosquito.
Sure. Well, I just want to be clear and backtrack a little bit. Those green pools do produce mosquitoes, okay? So that, but just not necessarily Aedes aegypti. They produce Culex more than anything. Culex is that mosquito that lays its eggs in rafts by the hundreds, and so. And that's where the problem with tadpoles comes in. Tadpoles do eat mosquito larvae, but they really don't seem to be able to keep up with the larvae. And so I find larvae and tadpoles together a lot. I never find larvae and fish together, okay? Fish are a lot more voracious of an appetite than the tadpoles. They can consume a lot of mosquito larvae. So mosquito fish would be certainly a solution for a green pool, and we provide those. We're doing a giveaway tomorrow in conjunction with the rapid response. And we're kind of growing that program right now. We're kind of in the infancy of it, but we anticipate having mosquito fish in the future.
Would that be available to citizens
Absolutely. No, it would be, that's our target audience, our homeowners. Okay, Shirley, you're up.
On the first part, the predators, but I understand that it's not frogs and tadpoles, it's the fish. But we're dropping the donks about every 30 days. When I say we, I'm not doing it as well as some of the other guys. Thanks, guys. About every 30 days, because the premise is that we think, as we understood it, is that the eggs are in the pool, and that when they do hatch in the pools, that they eat that and that retards them or causes them to die. Is that even anywhere close to me telling the public
Yeah,
the right
that's
thing?
actually a very good question. So let's talk about the dunks a little bit, because I know that everybody's using them, but I'm sure most people don't understand how they work, okay? So if you have mosquito larvae in the water, the dunks are the same product that we spray out of our helicopter, okay? It's Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, commonly called BTI, and it's a naturally occurring soil bacteria. And it's not toxic to anything except mosquito and black fly larvae and midge larvae. So it's a great product, but it's consumable. So mosquitoes have to eat it for it to work. So if you have a pool that's got a lot of pupae in it, that last stage before they emerge, BTI is not going to impact that at all. But the way the BTI works is that they eat, they filter out some of that bacteria and they consume it. And then in the midgut of the mosquito, the bacteria reacts with the specific pH of that mosquito body, and it forms a crystal. It crystallizes. That crystal then will grow and grow and grow until it basically explodes the mosquito from the inside out. That's the mode of action of BTI. So it's not really pretty, and you don't really see it, but that's how it kills them. The other solution, if they're no longer feeding, mosquitoes have to breathe through the surface of the water to survive, the larvae. They have a siphon tube. So if they're no longer feeding, you have to put a surfactant on the water that will suffocate the larvae so they can't breathe. And so that's another product that we use as well. But getting back to the pool, the key is habit. Well, we talked about source reduction. So if you can't get rid of it, you can't get rid of the pool, right? So you want to then turn to the next step of your integrated mosquito management, and that's going to be habitat management, or habitat, you want to manage that habitat in a way that mosquitoes aren't going to find it suitable. So putting a couple fish in a pool would be a good example of habitat management, certainly biological control as well. And that would be what we would encourage. Drain the pool, would be great, but if it rains, it's going to have water in it. So you want to manage that habitat in a way that you exploit, that mosquito in a way that it's not going to survive.
Ask a question. Testing. Okay, so BTI, that soil, what you were talking about, I noticed that complaints coming in from Miami, and of course media has a tendency to sometimes blow things out of proportion, but question I have, is that the same spray that is being so much fled against with the citizens from Miami because of the hazards from it and possible hazards from it?
Yes and no. I mean, they are spraying BTI in Miami, but that's not what all the complaints are about. The complaints are about NALID. BTI controls larvae. So, so in Miami, they have a target zone. They have a zone of transmission that they've identified. And of course, the goal now is to kill the mosquitoes, adults and larvae, and break the cycle of the transmission of Zika. So part of that strategy is to fly BTI, liquid BTI, from a helicopter in a mist, so that, it's completely different from the dunks, although it's the same exact active ingredient, but the mist is going to drift into every backyard, and hopefully a little drop will land in every container that has mosquito larvae. It's not a proven method. It's certainly, I don't want to say experimental, but it's cutting edge, a new method of trying to, use the technology that we have with aircraft and spray systems and kind of leverage that in a way that we can get a good biocontrol of larvae over a big area, a large area. Dibrome, or Nalid, is an adulticide. It kills adult mosquitoes. And it's probably, without a doubt, the most respected insecticide when you're trying to kill adult mosquitoes. We've been using it here forever. We spray it all the time. And nobody complains unless we don't spray over their house. Then we get the complaints because it works. It works very well. It's completely safe when used, according to the label. But it's not target specific. And that's probably where people get a little upset about it. Where the BTI is target specific. It's going to target only the mosquito larvae. If there are tadpoles or other microinvertebrates in the water, they're not going to be impacted. Dibrome is a broad spectrum insecticide, so it's going to impact other flying insects. Bees are very susceptible to it, however. Bees are not active at night or early in the morning when the spraying is occurring. So we understand that Dibrome is a challenge from a PR standpoint, and we're completely prepared to argue that case if we have to. And I think the data and the statistics are on our side. Without exception. You're welcome, Laverne. Are you running for another question?
Yes.
Oh, here we go.
On the fish application, how do we get those?
Okay, well, as I said, right now what we're doing with the fish is we're doing special events where we have a distribution. We did our first one on July the 2nd. We set up at Pet Services in Brandon, and we had people lined up for the fish. We're doing our second event tomorrow in Town and Country, and I'm not sure how many people will show up, but I think internally we have already had very robust discussions about establishing a fish program. We're still kind of working out some of the details of what type of scale it's going to be. And if we have some cooperators that are going to help us with that. But I would expect, maybe in the next 18 months that mosquito control will have a stock of fish, maybe sooner, available for homeowners all the time.
We have a lot of vacant properties that we have to manage ourselves, being code enforcement. So, and some of them are in foreclosure, so we have these vacant pools. Yep. How would the city would get it from you the same way as a private citizen?
Yeah, which city are you with?
City Tampa.
City Tampa, yeah. I think that, I would envision that we would have a very good pipeline with code enforcement from the cities and the county with respect to fish distribution. The good thing about fish that I think you all are going to appreciate shortly is that you don't need any type of pesticide applicator license to stock a swimming pool with fish. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little later. The BTI dunks, yeah, there are some regulations that you guys need to be aware of, and you're going to need to look into that because that is a registered pesticide, and there are laws about who can make applications on private property. And all of my guys are licensed applicators, and it's the same. You're using the same product that we use. So I'm going to talk about that after the break. It's a good question, though. We really think that there's a high demand for the fish, and I think that more than anything, they work. But I think we want to demonstrate, and as Shirley was talking about, or Laverne, about what's going on in Miami, we want to demonstrate our commitment to environmental stewardship and to promoting biological control as often as we can. And we really think the fish are going to help with that. Yes, sir.
Are there any other natural predators?
Can't hear you.
Natural predators of the mosquito?
Yes. Great question. For adult mosquitoes, dragonflies, can be a very good predator. Katydids and that sort of thing. But what is not a very efficient biocontrol are bats, even though I know you hear all the time. And here's why. I just mentioned dragonflies and katydids as predators for adult mosquitoes. That's what bats prefer to eat. Bats prefer larger insects first. Now, they'll eat mosquitoes if that's all that's there, but they're going to go out and it's very similar to a bug zapper. Everybody's got these old bug zappers on their porch, and they zap a lot of beneficial insects. And some mosquitoes too. So you really have to measure out, well, is the harm to the non-target beneficials worth the benefit of the number of mosquitoes that you kill? I can tell you that bats will never ever be an efficient biocontrol of mosquitoes. And I worked in Oregon for a good while and did a lot of reading about Lewis and Clark. And if you read some of the journals of Lewis and Clark and their trek out to the Oregon coast, nobody was messing with the environment back then. It was natural, and the mosquitoes were unbearable. So when people think that putting a bat house up is going to reduce the mosquitoes, it's just not going to happen. It's going to help, and we encourage it, but we don't want the expectations to be out of line, because mosquitoes are produced by the billions and billions and billions, and there's just not enough predators to consume them. Okay, Scott?
I just wanted to ask about the gambusia, the fish that they're allowed to drop in swimming pools, so you don't need the pesticide license. What kind of hardiness do they have, or how long will they last in the pool if it's not being cared for?
They are extremely hardy. They're very hard to kill these fish off. So I would say as long as that pool is green and it's full or even half full, the fish are not only going to thrive, they're going to reproduce at a high rate. They are live bearers, so they'll have live offspring, and they'll sustain themselves in that pool easily. They're difficult. Okay, I got one more slide. I think we're going to have a break. What we did in 2014, chikungunya was coming on the scene, and at the same time there was a new mosquito trap that was introduced, and this trap right here I talked about. This is a Center for Disease Control, been using this for decades. It doesn't collect Aedes aegypti for a lot of reasons. I won't go into those, but a new trap was brought on the market. I've got one here. So in 2014, we invested in this new technology, and we started to map out Aedes aegypti distribution in Hillsborough County, as well as Aedes albopictus. This trap really works very well. And so this is just some of the preliminary data showing you that, in areas where you have really highly densely populated, a lot of garbage, a lot of junk, a lot of tires, a lot of wooded lots where people dump stuff. We see some of the highest incidence of these mosquitoes. So we're really starting to collect a lot of data on the mosquito. I think we're going to take a break, and then I got a couple videos. We've got DOH here, and then we'll wrap it up by noon. I did have a question during the break about the ability of the adult mosquito to transmit the virus vertically to her eggs. And at this point, they don't believe that that's going to be an issue, but it's something they're looking at pretty close. As far as the virus, I had another question about, how the mosquitoes get it. So humans are the host of Zika. So, what we're facing now is a situation where people are traveling to areas where Zika is being spread, and they're being infected, and they come home to Tampa, and they get sick, and they go to their doctor. They find out they have Zika. Well, for a while, a couple weeks, if a Aedes aegypti that's here in Tampa feeds on them, then they infect the mosquito, and then that mosquito can potentially, start to transmit to other folks. That hasn't happened yet, and we're hopeful that it doesn't happen. Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Shiver to step up and talk about tires and kind of what techniques you can actually use to detect mosquitoes at the places that you visit. And then we'll have that question and answer coming up after this.
Welcome. To kind of put another spin on what Ron's been talking about thus far this morning, to kind of drive the message home, 1,100 square miles in Hillsborough County. We've got 11 field inspectors and 3 field supervisors to cover all those areas for mosquito control purposes inside of the county of Hillsborough. Public information is the best way to control these domestic mosquitoes, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But while y'all are out doing your daily routine, whatever it is that y'all do, I know probably all of y'all have your specialties that you do inside of code enforcement. If you're into somebody's residence and you see some of the things we're fixing to talk about, you might not be able to write them a ticket or cite them or anything like that, but say, hey, look, you're breeding Zika mosquitoes in there. Let's get the word out. There's 100 people in this room. If each one of y'all told 10, we've told 1,000 people by the end of the week. So that's a big deal. So getting into it again, my name is Joseph D. Shiver, but everybody calls me Jody. My brother graced me with that whenever I was a young man, and it stuck with me, and that's it. So people who know me more affectionately call me Jody Boy, which that's fine too. So that's the Aedes aegypti mosquito. One of the things that I like to tell people, I'm a musician, been playing banjo since I was 12 years old. That little area right there on their head, the industry describes that as a lyre, L-Y-R-E, or leer, however you want to say it. A lyre is what you saw people back in the days of Caesar Augustus play. It was a musical instrument like a guitar. So if you see that right there, that kind of looks like the body of a guitar with strings. That's where the lyre comes from, okay? So that's the Aedes aegypti. 13 genera and over 47 species here in Hillsborough County. Seems like a lot. I'm a simple country boy, grew up in Pinecrest, Florida, southeast Hillsborough County. When I come to work for Hillsborough County Mosquito Control in January of 2012, I thought there was a mosquito and they all bit you. I had no idea that it was this significant of mosquito industry. The industry is amazing. If it wasn't for mosquito control, you wouldn't have things like Disney or Busch Gardens or beaches or lakes or ponds and people that could actually enjoy themselves, which is tourism, which the state of Florida is all about. In the event of Zika, we're only concerned with the one, Aedes aegypti, and since I've created this presentation, it has been confirmed that Aedes albopictus, which is the other one with the single stripe down its head, will and can spread Zika, okay? The four different stages we've already talked about: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. As Ron said, the females are the only ones that bite you, and the males, it's not that the males don't want to bite you, it's that they can't. They don't have a proboscis. They cannot take a blood meal. It is impossible. When you walk up to a home and you're doing your job, whatever it is with inside of code enforcement, these are the kind of things that you can be looking for to identify where these mosquitoes are most likely going to be. And these are the things that are probably the most neglected in most homes is rain gutters. Again, apologies on the dippers, but you can walk up there with a stick and tap on that gutter. You know what it sounds like when it's full of water or full of debris. You'll have a hollow sound or a full sound. Say, hey, you might want to clean them gutters out. You're causing some mosquito problems for yourself and your neighbors. Bird baths are another big thing. They're really neat whenever they're brand new and the wife loves it and wants to go out there and watch the birds drink out of the bird bath, but then it just gets forgot about over time. They're going to be there. They fill up with leaves. The organic matter is what the mosquitoes eat, so. And then, of course, just trash, bromeliads. City of Tampa, got any bromeliads down there on the south end? About every house has got a half acre worth. Yeah, so I mean, this is where they're at. Those are artificial containers that the good Lord made right there. It works. I mean, that's where they're at. They have been found there. And then, like Ron was showing you in the videos, of course, used tires. That's the 6-star hotel. These are the tools that we use in the industry. That of course is a mosquito dipper. It's just a little plastic cup on a wooden dowel rod, and you stick it down in there and you dip the water. I mean, there's a little bit of art to it. Whenever you walk up to do your dipping, you want to make sure that you're not casting a shadow, because then the larva will go down to the bottom and it's harder to catch. This looks a lot like a turkey baster because it is. Industry calls it a pipette. What you would do is, like with the bromeliads that we just saw, you would stick it down inside where the area where it holds water at the bottom, suck the water out, put it in your dipper, and see if you can identify any larvae. This is a aspirator. Both of these are aspirators. Basically how this one works is it's very high tech. You put the tube in your mouth and you suck while you're watching a mosquito fly. If you have emphysema or anything like that, you probably want to stay away from this tool. But they did come up with a battery-operated one right here that works the way you just turn a switch on. It's got a little vacuum that makes a suction. You catch mosquitoes in there. The reason why all these tools are important, we send every week samples of Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus mosquitoes that we've collected in the field to the lab in Kissimmee, a state lab. They process them and they can tell us if there's any Zika virus inside of those mosquitoes. We have to catch a certain number. I think you have to have at least 5, but we prefer to put more in there. So we've been doing that. We've been sending samples from the field to Kissimmee every week, as much as we possibly can, to stay out in front to see if we can detect it in the field before somebody calls and says they have Zika, or we're notified by the Department of Health. So whenever you're out in the field and you're performing these type of inspections, which y'all probably won't be unless we have some type of a huge problem, what we'd want to do is we'd want to collect samples right down where they were collected, and we would use it then for further testing to give us an idea of what's going on inside of those mosquitoes. So that's what we just talked about, and that's all I got. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your children if they don't live at home with you. You know, they don't have to live in Hillsborough County. I mean, this could be something real big. In 2014, the summer of 2014, there was no Zika in Brazil. They hosted the World Cup. One soccer player brought Zika to Brazil. Now there's well over 100,000 cases going on down there in just over 2 years. Just over 2 years. That's how tremendous this can be. So with that, I yield the floor back to Mr. Montgomery. Thank you all very much for what you do.
I'm going to have Steve come up here shortly to take questions, but there's one other subject that I really want to talk about, and that is licensing for pesticide applications. I asked the Department of Ag to send a representative to address this, and they were unable to. But they did send me a spreadsheet that talks about different scenarios that we would encounter in the mosquito control industry in Florida, and whether or not a license is required. So I've got copies of these for everybody, and I want to really, really recommend that you contact Department of Ag to find out. The labels on mosquito control insecticides are regulated by the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. It's federal laws. To violate those laws is not a situation you want to get yourself into. Okay? So here we go. Situation: mosquito control on private property or business. Okay? I think that's something that we're all doing. Okay. Public health pesticide certification is required as an employee of a mosquito district or a government agency. So if you're a public employee and you're performing mosquito control on private property, according to this, you need to have a public health license. Okay? Mosquito control on community-owned or common property, such as right-of-way or for a homeowner association and that sort of thing. Public health pesticide certification is required. An employee of a mosquito district or limited government employee that's doing that type of mosquito control needs to be licensed by Department of Ag. Mosquito control in parks or athletic fields can only be performed by a mosquito control employee, according to this. And then any type of aquatic weed control for mosquito control purposes, spraying water lettuce or water hyacinths, has to be done by a mosquito control program. Florida takes its mosquito control very seriously, and the legislature has adopted laws that are very, very well-defined and well-respected within the mosquito control community. And I think we find ourselves in a situation where, because of an emerging public health threat, we need to remind ourselves that these laws are out there. And there may be a workaround. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some workaround. I mean, we are under a public health emergency declared by the governor, and Hillsborough County was the first of 4 counties on February 1st that was declared, part of this. So the message that I want to leave you with is contact Florida Department of Ag. You go to their website, they have a mosquito control section, and they have folks that are there to help you out and answer the questions. Some good news is that if you have somebody on staff with a license, 10 other folks can operate under that license. So it's not like everybody has to have one, right? Just the smart people. With that, Steve, come on, you want to, I guess we'll go into a question and answer. I'll give you this. Sure. Everybody, this is...
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Heward. I'm with the Department of Health here in Hillsborough County. I will try to answer any health-related questions that you have on Zika. And while I've got the mic in hand, I also brought yesterday's press release for the state of Florida talking about Zika and the number of cases that we currently have, travel-related, locally acquired, and so forth. I think it's really good information for everyone. I hope I brought enough copies. And you can, if you want to get my card, which is also on the table, shoot me an email, I'll add you to the daily Zika update, so you can see exactly what's happening in the state of Florida. Not just your neck of the woods. You can see what's going on everywhere, and see where where the direction of Zika is going and everything else. And with that, I'd also like to just say thank you for doing the job that you're doing, because you are literally the front lines of the fight against, the spread of the Zika virus. So with that, we'll take some questions.
The fish, what type fish is it that you're?
I'm good. The fish that we use are commonly called mosquito fish. They're a type of minnow. Gambusia affinis is a genus and species of that fish, about an inch or 2 long, and they're native to Florida, which is nice. So there are no concerns about, no fish and wildlife concerns, and they're typically a part of most successful mosquito control programs. So yeah, we buy them from a distributor over near Plant City, very cheap. But we do plan to start raising them ourselves.
That we're the hosts of the Zika virus. Maybe I misunderstood you in saying that the way that the mosquito gets it is they bite us and that's how they get it. So my question is, if we're the hosts of the Zika virus, then what are the symptoms of that particular virus? I know it's not this shrinking head thing either, so I know it's got to be something.
Specifically the symptoms of Zika? Is that what you're asking?
Maybe I'm getting really cerebral, but my thought is that if we know the symptoms of the Zika virus and we're the host, why wouldn't we contain that from a health department perspective as opposed to, that's what I guess it was.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Was it wrong? Did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, no,
For instance, which I was discussing earlier, it's like we hear about the pregnant women, and the side effects if they possibly get a Zika. What is it in, we hear that it can also be sexually transmitted, those things, but what are the signs and the symptoms of, we get bit, you get a fever? I mean, those are the things I don't hear much about, like what are the symptoms of a Zika in the host?
Okay, well, very interesting. 4 out of 5 people who are bitten by a mosquito with Zika who contract the Zika virus will not have any signs or symptoms at all. Okay, so Zika will, if you get Zika and you're going to show signs or symptoms or get sick from it, it usually takes between 2 days and about 2 weeks before it can, become active in your body and you'll start feeling anything. And the signs that you'll see is you'll get red eyes, conjunctivitis, malaise, so just body aches, they call it retroorbital pain, which is eye pain. So it's basically just a general feeling of malaise and sickness. You're going to feel bad, not not like you got to get hospitalized bad, but you're just going to feel like maybe you've been run down for, you let yourself get run down, you'll sleep it off, the next day you're fine. It's that kind of thing. But if you're a woman who's, still wants to have children, and you have that, then it's a good time before you, try to become pregnant to go talk to your obstetrician and inform them that you had mosquito bites, you felt this way. They can still test your blood, and it's in your blood for, about a week or so after you have had after it's run its course. So they can still pick it up. But the reality is, there is no cure for it, there is no drug to treat it. So what we have to tell everybody is, you have to not get bitten. You have to take these steps to, drain and cover to protect ourselves from the breeding grounds. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so,
Hang on.
and I know, of course, you're not wanting to, create a blind panic, because you can already kind of sense and feel it in the complaints that do come in, and a lot of it's focused in on the swimming pools. And so, so there is not a cure for it. Is it something like, for instance, my mom has Lyme disease? I mean, I'm trying to understand around my head.
That's a great question. Listen, we all started hearing about Zika in February,
Right.
top of this year. And in that time, you've now heard that it causes, and the CDC's definitively said, it causes microcephaly in some infants. But they don't know how that actually happens. They found the link, but they don't know what that link actually means. Is it actually the mosquito? Is it the virus? Is it the chemicals that they're using in Brazil? Is it something else in those areas of the world that this is happening? Because we're not seeing a large amount of, Zika being locally transmitted. And I know everybody wants to know about the Pinellas case that's in Hillsborough. We've done a lot of testing, folks, and we have not gotten one single positive back yet. Okay? So when I say you're doing a wonderful job out there, I mean it. You talk about, let's talk about things that we know. And let's talk about, real quick, we've already gone through West Nile virus here in this community, in this region, in Florida. Chikungunya, dengue. You get chikungunya or dengue, you got sick. That's a big deal. It's not like Zika where 4 out of 5 people. If you get it, you're going to be laid up for a month or more. So there's other mosquito-borne diseases in our community that we've been living with every day before Zika ever turned up. The fact that Ron, when was that video, the first one you showed? You said the 40s?
1945.
1945, we were talking about yellow fever, dengue, and chikungunya. Kinda interesting, isn't it? Here we are again today. We haven't talked about these mosquito-borne diseases for years. So the other thing that we don't know about Zika is a mother who is pregnant currently, diagnosed with Zika, has a perfectly normal baby. What happens 10 years from now? Everything's still fine? Is there something else? We don't know because we don't have that amount of study time at this point. So there's a lot of questions out there. But the reality is you've got to not be bitten. And the other thing is if you're a woman, and you want to have children or, have more children, consider the fact that we live in the U.S. We all have screens on our windows. We have air conditioning. We have mosquito control that works every single day. A lot of the other countries that we're talking about don't. Again, we don't know the long term of anything Zika related at this point. But we do know that, as Ron mentioned, we do know that mosquitoes kill more than anyone else, any other thing on the face of this earth. Mosquitoes kill more of us than we kill of each other. That really says something. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Last call.
They already gave last call, so it's up to the rest of you. Here we go.
Once you're infected with Zika and you've had it, do you build up an immunity or a titer, or will you catch it again?
Actually, what we're finding is that once you've had it, you should be immune from it. So if you are bitten in future cases, you should have an immunity to it. So, yeah, great question.
Okay, so any other questions? I want to really thank you, Steve. You guys are so great to work with. Really appreciate the cooperation that we get with you guys. So you're going back out in the field. I think what we learned, things haven't changed much since 1945. Okay, this mosquito still behaves the same way. It still likes to find artificial containers. The key to really mitigating any impacts from this mosquito is to educate the public on getting rid of those sources. And so we encourage you to talk to people, ask them to talk to their neighbors, and ask their neighbors to talk to their neighbors, and let people know that it really does make a difference. It makes a big difference, and it's a community effort. And there was a question, I saw a hand go up.
I've got one more question on the prevention. The bromeliads, it's not feasible to take people without the bromeliads in the yard because it's telling them they can hold water.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some kind of way they can maybe spray them with oil or something to keep the mosquitoes from laying eggs in there?
Yeah, so, it's going to come down to, if you're going to have a lot of bromeliads and there's a mosquito illness that's being, spread around, that you're going to have to consider the risk of maintaining those bromeliads versus ripping them out. I'm a big fan of ripping them out, I'll be honest, I'm all about source reduction. So I'd rip them out or poke a hole in the bottom so the water drains out of them. But practically, if you want to keep them, and they are beautiful plants, and they're great here in Florida, you just need to rinse them out with a hose every 4 or 5 days, which is not a problem if you've got 5 or 10, but if you've got 300 or 400, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's a big drain of our resources when a homeowner has bromeliads and they call us because they think they're getting bit by salt marsh mosquitoes, and it's actually the mosquitoes that they're creating themselves, in for their own pleasure. And so, there's gonna come a time when they're gonna have to make some decisions about bromeliads.
Just to be clear, according to the spreadsheet you talked about earlier, you can't recommend anything that they could spray on because it says a resident or business, correct? You have to have a license.
What I'm reading here is that if the situation is mosquito control on private property, according to what I'm reading here, and I've got copies for everybody, public health pesticide certification is required. Now, and the reason is that every pesticide that's sold has a label, and that label is the law. Now, if you're a homeowner, you're exempt because you're buying it at Walmart or Home Depot, you're putting it in your own property, and 80% of all the insecticides that are applied in Hillsborough County are applied by homeowners, okay? A lot of people think mosquito control is out there spraying like crazy. Homeowners account for most pesticide use, and they don't read the label, I can guarantee you that. But if you're working for Hillsborough County or the city of Tampa or the city of Plant City or the city of Temple Terrace, way in the back, you are a public health applicator, okay? You can't get around that. There may be an exemption that's available, I don't know. I hope so, because like I said, we are your biggest fans. We want you to be successful because the better you are at what you do, the better we are at what we do. And we're all on the same team. But I just want to be clear that you need to look into it. You need to look into it. And that was one of my biggest goals today, was just to make sure that you're aware that this type of work is regulated heavily, and also that swimming pools don't create Aedes aegypti too much. So 2 goals accomplished. And so when you head back out, spread the word. We are here for you, and I know that Steve and his team are available. If you need additional information, mosquito fish, if you really think it's something that would benefit you and we can help facilitate that, let us know, send us a request. If we have a request, it might make a difference in how quickly we can organize, the process of getting the fish on hand. 2 sites that are notoriously super producers of Aedes aegypti are tire facilities, used tire facilities, and cemeteries. And we have already instituted a program of inspection and treatment of both of those, everyone that we know of. And, we encourage, there are laws on the books, you all know that, about tire sites and specific to mosquito control. That's all I have. Anybody want to wrap it up? Andrea, anybody? Well, thank you all for coming. Steve, thank you. Jody, go forth and do great things. And remember that video from 1945.